That time I unknowingly fell in love with a serial killer, or did I? I never thought my life would turn into a horror story. Me, a simple girl from a quiet town who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 26 years old, a single mother to a beautiful little girl named Lily. We lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of Chicago, leading a peaceful life until he came into it. I met Mark at a local cafe, where I often went to unwind after a long day at work. He had this charm, a disarming smile, and eyes that seemed to understand the depths of my soul. We started talking, and soon enough, it became a routine. Our conversations were effortless, filled with laughter and Mark was attentive, always knowing the right words to say. He showed genuine interest in Lily, which won him a special place in my heart. He'd bring her small gifts and make her laugh with silly faces. It felt like a dream, a kind, loving man who accepted me and my child. But dreams can turn into nightmares, and mine did, with a ferocity I could never have imagined. It was one evening when the first shreds of doubt crept into my mind. We were watching a movie at his place, and he excused himself to take a call. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but his tone was different, cold, calculating. The words were muffled, but the intensity in his voice sent chills down my spine. When he returned, the mask was back on, but I couldn't shake the unease that had settled in my chest. The turning point came a few weeks later. Lily had fallen ill, and I stayed home to take care of her. Mark offered to bring us dinner, and I gratefully accepted. When he arrived, he seemed off, distracted and tense. He barely looked at Lily, and his attempts at conversation felt forced. That night, after putting Lily to bed, I found a small, crumpled piece of paper in Mark's jacket pocket. It was a receipt from a hardware store, listing items that made my blood run cold: duct tape, rope, a large knife. I tried to convince myself it was for something innocent, but deep down, I knew I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, my mind racing, piecing together fragments of conversations and odd behaviors. Mark's sudden trips, the way he sometimes seemed to disappear without explanation. The charm that had once drawn me to him now felt like a sinister fraud. The next day, I decided to follow him. I had to know the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. He left his apartment in the morning, and I trailed him from a distance. He drove to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. My heart pounded as I watched him disappear inside. Summoning every ounce of courage, I crept closer, peering through a cracked window. Inside, Mark was speaking to another man. Their words were too faint to hear, but the sinister air about them was unmistakable. They were planning something dark and dangerous. I backed away, trembling, my mind reeling with possibilities. I had to protect Lily and myself. I couldn't confront him directly, he was too dangerous. I needed help, but who could I trust? I called my best friend Sarah, explaining everything in a hushed, frantic whisper. She urged me to go to the police, but I was scared. What if they didn't believe me? What if Mark found out before they could act? But Sarah insisted, and I knew she was right. I couldn't do this alone. The next day, I went to the police, armed with the receipt and my suspicions. Detective Carter listened patiently, his face growing graver with every word. He promised to investigate and assigned an officer to keep an eye on us. I felt a sliver of hope, but it was quickly dashed when Mark appeared at my door that evening. His eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth I once saw. He knew. "What did you do, Emily?" His voice was calm to calm. I don't know what you mean, Mark." My voice trembled, betraying my fear. "Don't play dumb with me." He stepped closer, and I could see the darkness in his eyes. "You went to the police, didn't you?" I didn't answer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I tried to back away, but he grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "You've made a huge mistake," he hissed, dragging me toward the door. "Now you'll have to pay for it." I struggled, but he was too strong. He shoved me into his car, and we sped off. I didn't know where he was taking me, but the terror was consuming me. I thought of Lily alone and unprotected, and it fueled my desperation. As we drove, I noticed we were heading toward the same warehouse I had followed him to. Panic surged through me. I had to escape, but the doors were locked, and he kept a tight grip on my arm. When we arrived, He dragged me inside, where the same man from before was waiting. They argued in hushed tones, and I seized the opportunity. I spotted a metal rod on the ground and grabbed it, swinging it at Mark with all my strength. He staggered back, cursing, and I ran. My legs felt like lead, but fear propelled me forward. I burst through the door and into the night, not daring to look back. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere was better than here. I ran until I couldn't breathe, collapsing in an alleyway. I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. "Help! Please help me!" The police arrived within minutes, and I told them everything. They launched a manhunt for Mark, but he had vanished. Detective Carter assured me they would find him, but the fear remained. In the days that followed, I stayed with Sarah, too scared to return home. The police kept a close watch, but Mark was always a step ahead. It felt like living in a nightmare, waiting for the monster to strike again. Then, one night, as I lay in bed, I heard a noise downstairs. My heart froze. I grabbed the baseball bat Sarah had given me for protection and crept down the stairs. In the dim light, I saw a shadow moving toward Lily's room. I screamed, charging at the intruder. The bat connected with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the ground. I turned on the light, and there he was, Mark, blood trickling from his head, but still conscious. "You'll never be free of me," he spat, eyes filled with hatred. The police arrived moments later, arresting him. As they led him away, he glared at me, a promise of vengeance in his eyes. But I didn't care. He was finally in the aftermath. I struggled to rebuild my life. The trauma lingered, but with therapy and the support of my friends, I found strength. Lily was my light, her laughter a beacon that guided me through the darkest days. Mark was sentenced to life in prison, and the horrors he had inflicted were revealed. He had been a serial killer, preying on vulnerable women, hiding his true nature behind that charming smile. I was one of the lucky ones, though it didn't feel that way. Years passed, and the scars began to fade. I moved to a new city, started a new job, and gradually, the nightmares lessened. I found solace in the little things: Lily's giggles, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of strangers. One day, as I sat in the park, watching Lily play, a man approached me. He had a gentle smile and kind eyes, nothing like the monster I had known. We started talking, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. Life had tried to break me, but I had survived. I had found strength I never knew I had, and in the process, discovered that even in the darkest times, there is light. The shadows in my heart had not vanished, but they had become a part of me, shaping me into someone stronger, someone who could find a. Please subscribe for more, like the video, and share it with your friends. Got any crazy stories of your own? Share them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.